One of the greatest multi-sport prospects we have ever seen is narrowing down his list of schools, and Baylor, yes, our Baylor, is actually the perfect fit.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. Boy, do we have some exciting prospects for you, like literally. We are going to talk about a kid who is top 20 prospect in 2 sports in this great country, and he's got offers from just about everywhere you can imagine, but Baylor is actually the best fit for him. We'll tell you why. Plus, there are some people starting to buy into some Sawyer Robertson Heisman dark horse buzz. We're going to go through the numbers. What does Sawyer need to hit to actually be in the Heisman conversation, and why it's not that crazy for him to get there. Plus, our boys overseas. BUSA is headed to the semifinals of this World University Games, and there are still some surprise Bears that are raising some eyebrows overseas. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. Oh, man. You're going to need to remember the name Ahmad Hudson, okay? And for what you're going to need to remember his name for, I can't even choose one just yet, okay? This kid is the number 1 tight end prospect in the entire country. And oh yeah, he's also a top 5 prospect in his position in a different sport. He's the number 4 power forward on the basketball court in all of America. And Ahmad Hudson's starting to really narrow down those schools. As you can imagine, pretty much everybody in the country wants this kid. Well, our Baylor Bears are right there. A&M, Florida, Ohio State, Nebraska, LSU, and Baylor. Comes from Ruston, Louisiana. He is obviously a big target in the class of 2027, like literally, okay, standing at 6'6.5", 230, about to enter into his junior season, and he's already so high on everybody's radar. High 4-star, probably going to be a 5-star composite when you look at 247, which is kind of what matters at the end of the day. The number 1 prospect in Louisiana, the number 1 tight end in America. So this kid comes with all kinds of hype, and he was an all-state basketball player as a freshman. And when you look at these schools, some real blue bloods in there, some schools with a lot of money, and then nestled in there is Baylor. We all of us watch them. We love the Baylor Bears. I talk about them every day, but I don't think they fit either of those, right? They're not a big money school. They're not a blue blood. At best, you can say a new blood in basketball, right? But looking at those 6 schools, Baylor's actually the best fit there. And you're like, what? Ohio State just won a national championship. LSU, blue blood. Florida, blue blood. A&M, all kinds of money. Nebraska, has money. Used to be a blue blood. Why on earth would Baylor be the perfect school for Ahmad Hudson? Like, how does that make any sense? Quite simple. Look, youngin', you want to make the NFL? You want to play championship level basketball as well? There's one school that does that. There's one school that has guys playing power forward and tight end that's on this list. That school's Baylor. That coach is Scott Drew. And we know Dave Aranda is the one that's really recruiting Ahmad Hudson here for football. I'm sure Scott Drew has made some contact with Ahmad Hudson, whatever he can. Okay, but you look these last, 10 years or so, Rico Gathers, power forward for Baylor basketball, drafted in the NFL as a tight end to the Dallas Cowboys. Ish Wainwright, playing in the NBA still as a power forward, played with the Baylor Bears. Couple of touchdown catches as, you guessed it, a tight end on the Baylor football team. Mark Vital wins a national championship as a gritty power forward for the Baylor Bears. Does he play in the NBA? Nope. He does the NFL instead and plays for the Kansas City Chiefs as a tight end. Like, this is tailor-made. Like, Baylor's last 10 years, in a weird way, has just been a build-up for Ahmad Hudson. Just churning out power forwards and tight ends at the same time. And then here's one who's already considering Baylor, who's the best, arguably the best in the country at both in high school. It's never been more tailor-made. This has never been a bigger layup for Baylor. Like, this is, okay, Baylor's going, to use the analogy, Baylor's going to the basket, and in front of them is Bill Russell, Shaq, Wilt Chamberlain, but we've got a jetpack on our back. Like, we're scoring that, okay? Ohio State is Bill Russell. Florida's Wilt. LSU is Shaq. And we've got the jetpack. We're the school that's actually done both here. And I really want to say Baylor's the best basketball program out of these. Obviously, Florida just won a national championship. It's tough to say that Baylor's the best, but certainly the consistency of the last 5 to 10 years. And I think Baylor still has a better coach. But like the rest of these, does A&M even play basketball? Let's be honest. They always are in the top 20 at the beginning of the season. They tease us. And then what? And then what do they become? Nebraska never won a tournament game. Ohio State, I think they opt out of that sport now. LSU, same thing. Like, if you want to do both at a high level, it is Baylor. It is us. Especially the way that Baylor's going in recruiting. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, overall, all things taken into account, Baylor's a better option as a football player than Ohio State or LSU. Like, looking at the draft record the last few years, it's tough to say that. I think Baylor's going to really start to put some more guys in the NFL in the next 2 years. I think they got 4 or 5 NFL players on their roster right now, which I don't know if you could say about all of these schools. But again, you want to do a little bit of both. Like, you want to compete and play in the college football playoff and make a run in the NCAA tournament as a power forward. It's Baylor. That's it. We're kind of muscling everybody out of there after that. You know, Ohio State can give you national championship football, so can LSU. A&M can't come anywhere near that. Florida, Nebraska, obviously not. So those are out of the picture. You want someone who can give you a deep run in basketball? Baylor can. Florida can. None of those other schools can. You want one that can give you both, college football playoff and a Final Four. And that ability. We're down to one school here. We're down to one school, and that's Baylor. This is one of the most intriguing prospects that Baylor's ever been in on, Ahmad Hudson. He's a person. He's the most intriguing prospect that I think Baylor has ever been in on. Like, these are once in a decade kind of prospects that are this good at both. And Baylor absolutely has the capability. Do they have the money that some of these other ones have? Nope. They've got some money. And they can say, hey, you know, you could play for a college football playoff berth with this Baylor football team. You can play for a Hall of Fame coach in basketball. Just, we'll wait. Go and find which of these other 5 schools can give you that. We will wait. Baylor's the only one that can give them the best of both worlds, man. I am fired up to see how this plays out. We got a long time. He's class 2027. But this is fascinating. And a once-in-a-generation unicorn that Baylor's going to be way in on and be a great option for. Ooh, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Find us on YouTube, wherever you find your podcast. Let me know what you think about Ahmad Hudson. Like and subscribe if you are excited about the prospect of this kid playing 2 sports for Baylor. It would be a nice bounce back. I know these aren't apples to apples because they're in different classes, but Chase Campbell, brother Chase Campbell. If you missed it, Tuesday, committed to Tech. It was really between Baylor and Tech. Down at the end of it, he's playing at Friendship, so he's right in Lubbock's backyard. I don't think Tech was making that same mistake twice, seeing Sawyer Robertson carve him up. Again, I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. I'm not one of those guys that say, we didn't want him anyway. This stinks. Doesn't affect their recruiting class because he wasn't committed. So doesn't really affect that. But there are some other options on the table. Davian Gross still hasn't committed. I think it's going to be Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to overpay for him, but Baylor's still in a great spot recruiting-wise, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You get Ahmad Hudson, man, whew, then you're really cooking with gas. That'd be one of the best recruits Baylor's ever gotten in either sport. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. We roll on. We got to talk about Sawyer Robertson. Some other people are starting to buy into the Sawyer Robertson hype, not just Todd McShay. It's another Sawyer Robertson segment, but we're going to go into the numbers as to why Baylor signal caller could actually be a legit Heisman dark horse candidate. That is coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by our old friends over at FanDuel. Y'all, summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more interesting, huh? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet all the time. Easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even the regular season baseball games, one of 162, feel like must-watch events. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Let me say that again so you don't think I'm lying. Seriously, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here on Locked On Baylor, Cam Stuart driving the train for you. I've been driving the Sawyer Robertson hype train all offseason long. And we've already gone over this week, the bad list that had Sawyer Robertson as the fourth best quarterback in the Big 12. And I've been saying all offseason long, like legit Heisman dark horse here. I'm not saying Sawyer Robertson's going into this season, he's going to be the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Like that has never happened at Baylor. Okay. That no one's ever gone into the season as the favorite. That's reserved for one or two positions at 4 or 5 schools. Okay. It's not for quarterbacks at Baylor. That said, a quarterback at Baylor has won the Heisman Trophy, and Sawyer Robertson is starting to sneak on to some more people's radar. And that includes those who are making these Heisman dark horse lists, because this one, the most recent, this is from Andy Staples, who again doesn't like Sawyer Robertson, but reporting through BetMGM is how he makes this. Sawyer Robertson down there, plus 6,600. Dark horse to win the Heisman Trophy. And I know there are Big 12 fans, some college football fans. Shoot, there are probably even some Baylor fans that are looking at this like, come on, guys. Can we pump the brakes? Like, Sawyer Robertson's a nice quarterback. He had room to improve from last year. Why are we even entertaining this discussion? And like, I get it. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, am I overhyping this kid? And then I watch the games back and I'm like, no, he's really good. Like, he's really good. If I could take the pick of any quarterback in the Big 12 to be my starter, it would be Sawyer Robertson. And I'm not even wearing a Baylor hat when I say that. I would pick Sawyer Robertson. And so I decided, I'm like, why don't I look into the numbers here? Like, what is it actually going to take for Sawyer Robertson to be a legit Heisman Trophy candidate? Because that's reserved for literally the best of the best. And so I looked back at the last 5 Heisman winning quarterbacks. Okay. That would be Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray. And I think that is crucial that they're all from the last 7 years, because I would say probably somewhere around Baker Mayfield, who would have been the 6th on this list, is where the quarterback game just really jumped for college football. Like, the numbers became more like pro numbers. They started really jumping off the page. The touchdowns, the passing yards, the completion percentage. And I found this on the Heisman website, like some of the stats that really intrigued me. And these are the ones you have to hit for yards per game, passing yards, total touchdowns, and quarterback rating. Now, before I get into this, the numbers here, I don't have the yards per play for Sawyer Robertson. I've tried like 6 or 7 different websites. It's not yards per pass attempt. It's not yards per completion. It's yards per play. Okay. And I couldn't find that. I apologize. All right. When we look at that stat, Jaden Daniels is at almost 11 yards per play. Like, that's how elite we're talking here. Caleb Williams at 8, Bryce Young at 8, Joe Burrow at 9.5, Kyler Murray right behind Jaden Daniels, who was at 10.7, Kyler Murray at 10.6. But I'm just getting that out of the way because I don't know what Sawyer Robertson's was this past year. Okay, passing yards. Only one of these guys was kept under 4,000 passing yards. That was Jaden Daniels at 3,800. Joe Burrow led the way with 4,700. Everyone else fill in the blank, somewhere between 4,000 and 4,700. Total touchdowns, got to be a lot. Got to be a lot, fellas. Okay, Bryce Young, the lowest total touchdowns on that list with 46. Okay, Joe Burrow with 51, same as Kyler Murray. Caleb Williams at 47, Jaden Daniels at 50. QB rating, which is the stat that we love with Sawyer Robertson, highest QB rating of any returning starter. 208 for Jaden Daniels, which does lead the way. This is kind of an interesting discrepancy here. You have 3 that are over 200, and the other 2 are under 170. The top 3 are between 200 and 210. And let me just say it. Okay. 208 for Jaden Daniels, 201 for Burrow, 205 for Murray, and then Bryce Young at 167, just ahead of him, Caleb Williams at 168. Let's take a look at that number first. The lowest on there is 167. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can get quarterback rating. A couple of different, websites do it different ways. I'm going with the one that I've seen thrown out the most for Sawyer Robertson, which is 153. That's a solid 14 points behind even the lowest of the last 5 quarterbacks to win the Heisman. Total touchdowns. Remember saying the lowest is 46 for Bryce Young. It's 32 last year for Sawyer Robertson. These do take into account playoff stats as well, which the most these guys had was 2 games, but that is something. And Sawyer basically played about 10 and a half games throughout this season. So he's a little behind on the games. And yards passing, the lowest was 3,800. Sawyer was just under 3,100. Now, again, when you take into account, now this was Jaden Daniels who didn't have a playoff game, but if you get like 3 more games, let's say that this could be basically 3 more games before the Heisman voting, a full 12 plus a 13th potentially for a Big 12 championship and maybe a 14th for a college football playoff. I know that's a lot to ask, but that he gets 700 yards in those games in his sleep, I think, like easily. And the 2 games he didn't have were cream puff games at the beginning of the season. Like those are 350-yard passing games easy for Sawyer Robertson if he's playing 3 quarters, so that's not crazy to get there. Does he need a big leap to hit those numbers? Of course he does. But here's the thing. This is year 2 for Sawyer under Jake Spavital. It's the only year that he's gone into with Jake Spavital going into the season, being the starter, and continuity matters. He returns a ton of guys and his most important ones, right? Like 60 to 80% of the offensive line, depending on how that shakes out. 2 running backs, 2 receivers, big play receivers, and a tight end who's going to play in the NFL. That's a ton of continuity. So it's not crazy to believe there's going to be a sizable jump for Sawyer Robertson statistically with the comfortability of an offseason, the continuity of the guys coming back, and getting more games than he had this past year. But what was most important to me wasn't just looking at the stats that these guys had in their Heisman season. What was more important to me was seeing the stats these guys had the year before their Heisman season. Now, Kyler Murray and Bryce Young won't be on this because they didn't really play enough in their seasons before. They were both basically, Bryce Young was a redshirt freshman and Kyler Murray had come in as a transfer and I think was just Baker's backup in 17. So they didn't get enough snaps for me to count them on this. But he was better. Sawyer Robertson's year this year was better than Caleb Williams in every one of those stats except quarterback rating. Caleb was a little bit better than him, which is hard to believe for those of us who watched him play Baylor. That was a mess that year. Total Dave Aranda masterclass, maybe the best he's ever had at Baylor. But yeah, he was better than Caleb Williams in everything but QBR in the season before the Heisman Trophy. And then that narrows us down to 2 guys, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, the 2 LSU quarterbacks. Of all the stats I named, Sawyer Robertson was better across the board than those two guys in the year before they won the Heisman Trophy. In every stat we listed here, and let's be honest, I looked at these two, most of the offensive stats that we care about, Sawyer swept them. That doesn't mean he goes in and wins the Heisman Trophy this year, but I'm saying this all to say it's not crazy to put some money down at plus 6,600. It's not crazy to think that Sawyer Robertson is a legit dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate if we're looking at the numbers. The obvious elephant in the room is he doesn't play at Alabama or LSU or USC or Oklahoma. That's the elephant here. He plays at Baylor. Okay? I get it. The hype's going to be Cade Klubnik at Clemson. It's going to be Arch Manning at Texas. It's not going to be Sawyer Robertson. That's not where the hype's going to be. But statistically speaking, looking at these last 5 quarterback Heisman Trophy winners, Sawyer Robertson is in that class of where they were beforehand, and he projects to be around what they were in their Heisman Trophy seasons. It's not crazy. Win yourself some money. Bet on Sawyer Robertson. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Am I being too delusional about this Sawyer Robertson Heisman candidacy? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're the only place bringing you nothing but Baylor athletics news every single weekday that's not directly in affiliation with the university. So like, subscribe, get involved in that comment section. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. We're not done here, okay? We're getting patriotic, as we love to do on Locked On Baylor. Our boys in red, white, and blue, Scott Drew's patriotic basketball players, are in the Final Four, baby. Let's talk about that next and who is impressing us on Locked On Baylor. Back with it, Locked On Baylor. Scott Drew's Baylor Bears basketball team is in the Final Four again. All right, not the one we care about necessarily, but the World University Games Final Four. They kicked the crap out of Finland, a mere little less Finland team, and they are on to the semifinals. I know some of you haven't liked this, some of you have. I've been fascinated by just reading through some of these box scores and watching the highlights and the playback of some of these games, just because we have no real idea of what this Baylor basketball team is. So I've been digesting these box scores mainly, and it's been promising. Like, you can't say it's not promising. You could say take it with a grain of salt, and I absolutely agree. This is not what it's going to look like in the Big 12 schedule. But it has been nice to see that Dan Skillings throws up another double-double in 36 minutes of really physical basketball. It's nice to see that Obi Agben plays 36 minutes himself and goes over 20 points again. He only shot 50% from the floor, and he did have 4 assists. Cameron Carr wreaking some havoc on the defensive end. He poured in 21 points in this game, also shooting 50% from the floor. So some things to improve on, sure, but some things that are catching us off guard here. Like, totally. And one of the guys that is absolutely catching, I think, all of us off guard, but certainly I'm speaking for myself here and catching me off guard, is Isaac Williams. Isaac Williams of A&M Corpus has kind of come out of nowhere. I think a lot of us expected, myself included, for him to just be this bench guy, depth guy, end of the bench kind of guy, like not going to factor in too much to Baylor's plans. He's had a real nice tournament here, and he's dunking on guys. He is turning some heads. He pours in 19 points in this game, and he goes 9 for 11 from the floor, 9 for 10 from 2-point range. He's not the biggest guard in the world. He's finishing in 2-point territory. He's finishing amongst the trees. He pours in 19 points, 4 assists. I might be a little off base here. I might be naive. I might be taking too much of the Kool-Aid here. That, to me, that profile and that stat line, that sounds like Rob Wright. I was worried when they got J.J. White in the transfer portal that it spelled the end of Rob Wright. It turns out money and Rob Wright II was the downfall of Rob Wright. That was the writing on the wall of why he wasn't going to play for Baylor this upcoming year. But this has a lot of a Rob Wright look to it. Isaac Williams might be bringing that to you. And if he can give you somewhere near that, like Scott Drew's kind of back in his bag. Not that he was really out of his bag, but we're talking about like if he can make this kid into a starter caliber player who can give you around what Rob Wright gave you, a 5-star at high school Rob Wright, then we're talking about Scott Drew absolutely cooking. And if he can get Obi Agbim to 16, 18 points a game, be a potential all Big 12 kind of guy, then that's the Scott Drew that we miss, so to speak. And again, this is not to say Scott Drew's been bad recently. I think the team has been disappointing, but it's been a whole different way that they've gone about it. They've gotten big-time transfer portal guys. They've gotten huge 5-star guys out of high school. And what I mean by Scott Drew getting into his bag is I'm talking about like Maceo Teague at UNCW, Adam Flagler at Presbyterian, okay? Like those are the kind of guys I'm talking about. Plucking somebody out of obscurity and giving them the shot. And they become national champion, all Big 12, all American kind of players. Do I think Isaac Williams is going to be that because he had 19 points against Team Finland? No. Okay, I understand that I'm reaching here. But this is where the test comes into play for Scott Drew this season. Isaac Williams, Obi Agbim, Caden Powell, these guys coming from J.J. White, these guys coming from lower levels. You're not plucking them from Duke. You're not plucking them from Miami even. You're not plucking them from Arizona like James Akinjo. You're pulling them from A&M Corpus, Nebraska Omaha, Wyoming, Rice. If those guys can become studs, then maybe this is a model that our boy Scott Drew just sticks with. That, mix in those guys and Ahmad Hudson after a year of blocking for Walker White and Edward Griffin and Quinn Murphy, then we're cooking. Then I think that's going to appease a lot of Baylor fans who have been really upset with the way that things have gone the last couple of seasons, both on the court and the way that Scott Drew has built these teams. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Have you been following this tournament? What have been your big takeaways? Let me know in the comment section. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. That helps us out a ton, especially here in the summer. I know you guys are waiting for games to come back, and there's a ton of the audience that doesn't really tune in the summer. So anytime you guys like the video and get involved in the comment section, it helps out the channel and it helps me out a ton. So I really appreciate those of you loyal fans who've been sticking with us throughout the summer. We'll get some more seasonals coming back in the next couple of weeks. We're going to start the season. The opponent preview series is probably going to start at the end of next week. Just so you guys know, we'll also have a full breakdown. I went on with Andy Patton of Locked On College Basketball, kind of a full preview of what this Baylor basketball team is going to look like. And he's got some bold statements in there, just so you know. We're probably also going to have a Locked On Baylor, Locked On Big 12 crossover tomorrow to take you into the weekend with some inflammatory remarks, I will say. So get involved in that comment section, like and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for making it your first listen today and every day, especially here in late July. We will see you tomorrow on another episode of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.